Welcome everyone back to Spoiler Warning, featuring myself, Tom Colohue. It has just gone 10 o'clock here in the UK, and of course we are talking wrestling news as always we do. We are live on two platforms today, on YouTube and on TikTok, to cover the vast majority of the world of wrestling, which is, as we know, an ever-changing, ever-evolving and ever slightly maddening place. We have plenty to talk about. We are going to be leading with our top story on AJ Lee. Lots of news on the developments there, why she came back, what the deal is looking like, and what pivots that has created. Also, how important Becky Lynch is to all of this. I was talking about Becky Lynch being the reason she came back, but the more I hear about this, the more pivotal Becky Lynch seems to be. We're going to talk about Andrade and Ray Phoenix. We've got a little bit on Ronda Rousey and WWE's complete lack of interest. We're going to talk Brock Lesnar's return. Now, I've got some reactions from backstage and in the locker rooms about Brock Lesnar. Got some news about how Brock Lesnar was acting when he returned to the WWE on Friday, so there's a bit more to share there. Pete Dunne, we've been talking about Pete Dunne not really being visible anymore, not popping up as much. We have news to share on that one. Dakota Kai, something else we shared recently. Matt Riddle, and why Bryan Danielson has been added to the AEW commentary team. So it's quite a diverse collection of news tidbits we have today, and we'll be starting with AJ Lee. The first question I want to ask all of you, so what I'm going to be adding to it shortly afterwards, and what I'm going to be talking about as regards AJ Lee, is this the return you were looking for? So, is this the return you were looking for when it comes to AJ Lee? I'll start with the news on AJ. By all means, react to it in the chat, and let's get that chat rate going. AJ Lee returned to the WWE on SmackDown. As I mentioned previously, she was being talked to about a single match with the opportunity to go to more if it was decided to be so. News on her contract length is questionable at best, but we'll get to that. She arrived during the show. She is, of course, local to Chicago, so it gave him a great opportunity to hide her arrival, but she also arrived after Brock Lesnar had already left. I've mentioned that Becky Lynch, Bayley and Lyra Valkyria were the driving force in that particular feud, but I've got more information since. I'm actually told that her experience with Lyra, which so closely echoed AJ's own experience with Lita, had a direct impact. She wanted to influence a next generation, of which Lyra was somewhat influenced by her, of which Roxanne was somewhat influenced by her, and in fact the input of Roxanne Perez also had an input here in the way that she has landed on the main roster. The way Triple H has been booking women, particularly people she pays attention to, like Roxanne, like Lyra, was enough to convince her to give it another go. We have 76 people watching and 19 likes. One more gets us to 20. Let's see if we can do that. Triple H is said to have offered a very high value deal, placing AJ amongst the higher end of the women in WWE, but not necessarily rivaling the amounts that people like Becky Lynch herself now commands. WWE is intending to feature her without a strong push towards championships, as championship storylines are already well underway and they don't want to interfere or push anyone else out. But AJ Lee is one of the reasons that WWE pivoted away from Becky Lynch versus Stephanie Vaquer at WrestleMania, which has allowed Vaquer to be placed directly into World Championship contention. It's also one of the reasons it took the WWE a few weeks to tell us what they would do after Naomi found out she was pregnant. Part of that, of course, was waiting to see if AJ Lee would be available, to see if they needed to have Becky Lynch step into that gap. In the end, they have not. AJ Lee hasn't met many people yet backstage, but a brief interaction with Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss is said to have ended positively, and with promises of working together in future. Personally, purely speaking personally, I would be very excited by the concept of an Alexa Bliss versus AJ Lee feud. That just seems like fun for me. Body Slam have reported, Mr. X, welcome, I'm going to answer this right now. Body Slam have reported that AJ Lee has signed a multi-year deal. A multi-year deal. Now, to be clear, I love reports that say this person has signed a multi-year deal. WWE don't do one-year deals. So what this is a report that says AJ Lee signed a contract. Triple H shared a video in which she signed a contract. What you're saying is what we already know. So a report says she signed a multi-year contract basically means what we already know, she signed a deal. Nothing else to really report on that one. I will recap that as we get later into the show, but for now I'm going to just catch up on everyone chatting on the YouTube and the TikTok side. Thank you already for the 137 likes on TikTok and for the 32 as well on YouTube. So where were we? Hello Mick, hello Sledgehammer, hello Liam, good to see so many of you. Ray says, did you see on WWE YouTube channel AJ Lee and CM Punk video after SmackDown went off celebrating? Yes, I did see in particular CM Punk telling AJ to pick up the championship and celebrate with it. Imagine feuding over a mid-card championship for returning AJ Lee, and yet here we are. And Mr. X, who will be discussing Brock Lesnar shortly. Roy says a report from Fightful select sources in AEW believe Wardlow may have sustained a torn pectoral muscle during or shortly after his comeback angle. The exact moment of the injury isn't confirmed. Ray, reading that, the injury itself isn't confirmed. It says right there, may have, which also leaves a massive door open to may not have. Always read the reports carefully because most of them very, very carefully avoid actually reporting anything. Paul says Sarah Logan moved to WWE alumni section after her contract expired. WWE essentially believed they were doing her a favour by keeping her on and not using her. In many ways, she agreed. Hi Marcel, good to see ya. Anonymous says thoughts on AJ Styles' Instagram post of the hourglass. Is he referencing to retirement or leaving WWE? It is indeed a TikTok and a bit of a celebration of Karrion Kross as well, who recently left the company. Robin Day, welcome, good to see you. Fiend says El Grande Americano has been added to 2K25 as part of patch 1.24. He's replaced Travis Scott in the New Wave pack. Goldberg has also been revealed as his render is in the game files, always has been, and it just gives them an opportunity to show it. Brock Lesnar will be unlocked shortly. Liam says AJ Lee has officially been announced for Raw tonight in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Oh, everyone say hi and bye to the troll. No point have I ever said that WWE don't want to re-sign Brock because his contract hasn't expired. He's been under contract the entire time. Bear with me one sec while I have a sneeze. And I thank everyone for bearing with me. Edward Brooks, you're right, mate. Says, hey, Tom, hope all is well. Do you think we see Bayley come back tonight to confront Lyra? I'm so intrigued. The Bayley storyline is building to a return. They're just taking their time about it. Bayley has been given some time off, and pre-recording all of these vignettes has been their way of giving it to her, while also ensuring that Lyra still has someone to work with when she returns. Liam can confirm this. The current plan is for Michael Cole and Corey Graves to be the commentary team for both Raw and SmackDown going forward, primarily because there is a little bit of time off in the current setup. Wade Barrett has booked, as he himself said, a little bit of annual leave. He will be returning in a few weeks. Oh, Fiend says there's also 3 new Persona cards for my faction. Cody Rhodes, 22, with a torn pec. Trish Stratus 03 and AJ Styles from TNA with Get Ready to Fly. Interesting. Edward Brooks says AJ coming back on my girlfriend to want to watch again. Fair enough. I mean, she connects with a lot of people and I absolutely respect it. Liam brings us sourcing. Per PWInsider, AJ Lee is set to appear on this week's Raw to officially announce CM Punk and AJ Lee versus Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch for WrestlePalooza. As I've been previously mentioning, that is indeed the plan for the match. Again, correct, Liam. Fiend says, will AJ Lee be part of the upcoming 2K26, which is due to release in March of 2026? They are intending to include her, yes. Bob John says, do you think we can see AJ versus Cena on a random Raw, just like we've seen Sami and Cena on SmackDown? I don't believe so, no, because AJ didn't sign the new deal. Yeah. Ray says, all I care about was AJ Lee whooping Becky. Then you had a great day. Eric says, good evening, Tom. How you doing? And yes, it's the return I was looking for. Once again, I did not say AJ Lee only came for one match. I said she was only guaranteed one match, and then the WWE planned to see how it went, opening the door for more if she wanted it. Honestly, if you're gonna call me a liar, firstly, Find out what I've actually said and don't make up what you think I've imaginarily said. Bismo says, hey Tom, hope all is well. I'm having a cheer wine cherry soda. Interesting. Says I'm out of cherry coke while watching your updates. I'm having an energy drink. Probably won't be having a lot of these because they're not fun and they keep me up, but I need one. Sledgehammer says, as regards the AJ Lee return, great so far. Declan, thank you. Encouraging everyone to hit the like button. 2 more gets us to 40. Noob says, hello Mr. Colohue, how are you doing today? Seems like AJ Lee's return definitely got everyone talking about it over the weekend. Yes, indeed it did, and that's got to get people hype. Liam says, per Corey Hayes, there are multiple returns to WWE TV expected on the horizon. Doesn't name a single one then. Doesn't name any of them. Wow. Our troll is now repeating the lie about me saying WWE not interested in re-signing Brock. Once again, at no point have I ever said, ever, that Brock will not be re-signed, primarily because they don't need to re-sign him. He is still with the company. Still. I've been very clear on that. Either listen or just shut up. Noob says, well, Eric, you're on the AJ Lee return hype train. Oh, I would imagine so. I imagine most of us are, to be fair. That's a hype train and a half, and why the hell not? VTP says, are we going to get a 5 to 7 match card for WrestlePalooza? Yes, we are. And Declan says, who do we see dethroning Becky? I mean, there's a logical choice now. There's a logical choice. Michael says, AJ was my favourite back in the day. Just can't get into anything WWE these days, and being with Punk makes me not care. That's a shame. Liam says, reported for tonight's Raw, AJ Lee returns, the Usos reunite, Lyra Valkyria versus Raquel Rodriguez, and AJ Styles versus El Grande Americano. The other Mike says, did AJ have any backstage heat when she left? Nope. I can't remember how or even why she left. She came back to work a page. Everyone was pretty happy about it, except for the fact that she herself was not. It was not directly connected to Punk leaving. She did not like Stephanie. She did not like Triple H independently. Ed says, hey everyone. Hello Ed, good to see you mate. Fiend says there's supposedly a DLC pack coming. They'll be titled Farewell Tour, and it will include John Cena 03, Ron Cena, and Brock Lesnar. Well, what a farewell tour that is. Ken, we do not have any news on Liv Morgan today. Just going to say that clear. Welcome to the show. Sean says, is it safe to say Finn now has competition for best abs in WWE with AJ Lee back? He definitely has some competition. I still think he just about edges it. One says, hey Tom, Dakota Kai mentioned on her Twitch that she misses wrestling. Could that mean AEW wasn't high on her to potentially sign her? We will have more on that shortly. Bailey says, Tom, how would you book Chad Gable's return when he bumps into El Grande Americano backstage? Oof. Wow. Again, we have another troll and nobody paying attention. Everyone says hi. Everyone say hi to the troll and bye to the troll. Cal, no White 6 news today. We've had quite a lot of them recently and I just haven't had any updates per se. He is indeed, Sean. He is indeed. Joe Tessitore will be returning at some point soon. Anonymous says, do you see Styles retiring after his contract ends in February, or do you see him going to AEW for a year? This is an interesting one because the same person who reported that his contract ends in February reported in September that it signed for a new year. Not September. Reported in June that he signed for an entire year. So I don't know which one's wrong, but one of them is. Rob and Dave, I became a wrestling fan quite early in life. I was 10 years old. I came downstairs one day and Kane was hitting a chokeslam on a member of the New Age Outlaws. Never really looked back. Never really looked back. Ooh, what's a live goal? I can apparently pin it. What does this mean? Getting out to free gifts. I don't know what this means. Sure. I have a live goal now. Cool. I don't know any of this. Good to know, Fiend. Good to know. Cool, Marcel. Good to see you. Thanks for dropping in. Michael says Dakota was implying she wanted to take a break from wrestling. There are reasons for that. Sid says Chris Jericho praised AEW's existence, but wouldn't be opposed to WWE return. Yeah, we know he's fishing. We know he's fishing. Drive-by says, hi Tom, do you think Roman could be back in October or is it more November? He'll definitely be back in time for November, but I would imagine we're going to see him before that. Yeah, plenty of trolls, probably the same troll, let's be fair. Helping our chat rate, so I ain't complaining. Fair Fiend, been a while. Thank you, Juan, I appreciate that. John Talks Everything says AJ Lee signed a multi-year full-time deal, right? Because it was reported that she did. Once again, the concept of multi-year deal essentially means signed a contract. It's an absolute nothing report. Absolute nothing report. The WWE do not sign people to one-year deals. Multi-year essentially means I don't know. That's where we are. I will recap everything on AJ Lee very soon indeed. Clippers fan, the proof is in my year upon year upon year history of video upon video upon video, multiple pieces of news, every single video being proven right. It's why I have to laugh at people like yourself, because if you did any of your research, even the slightest bit of research, you'd know that you are a ridiculous and pointless person. Sean says, I do hope AJ wrestles more often now that she's back. That is indeed the intention. Robin Dave says, I find it funny that people think you're a liar. They're just mad. They are furious. And I have a rule. You smile at people that hate you. Bob John says, Austin Theory definitely hitting the Australian destroyer in Austrian? You go for Australia there, Bob John? Marty Jannetty should sue Matt Riddle for ripping his shtick off. All the talent required to go all the way, but too many demons and making questionable posts on social media. I did not quite get what you were going for with that, but you're absolutely right. Eric says, do you think this storyline between the Kabuki Warriors, Io Sky and Rhea Ripley has legs to reach towards WrestleMania 42? Or do the Kabuki Warriors have other plans for WrestleMania 42? I can see Io Sky versus Asuka taking place at WrestleMania. Fiend says, AJ Styles is currently working on a WWE deal that reportedly expires in February 2026. Styles signed a one-year extension and reports that he put out feelers outside of WWE before signing it. This is via Sports Illustrated. So it's interesting seeing news like that come about, which does contradict what the same sources have said. Also, you're saying this is Sports Illustrated. My question would be, are they just reporting what has already been reported by Fightful? So is it an aggregation? Sports Illustrated do have aggregators now. Shop Dwellers, welcome. Says, hi Tom, long time my friend. What do you see in AJ Lee's future after Seth and Becky? Personally, I think she could well be the Intercontinental Champion, and I do think there's a feud with Lyra, a feud with Roxanne, potentially a feud with Stephanie Vaquer in the near future as well. Gotcha, Bob John, I get what you're saying now. John says, I hope AJ Lee takes the IC title off Becky. Sean says, Kevin has said a lot about Becky recently, like that she's desperate and the women's division has passed her by. Who's Kevin? And what on earth are you talking about? The other Mike says, what's next for Gunter? Would he return back to the main event scene? Yes. Yes. Clippers fan, you want me to read a newspaper for you? Like, what? Yes, I am indeed just talking, and being proven right on a regular basis. Continually. Check out my history. Watch all of my videos. Then I might care about your opinion. Tell you what, let's ask the people who are here. There are many people here who are regulars. Clippers fan would like any evidence of anything that I've accurately reported. As regulars here, can you think of just one thing that I've accurately reported? I would very much appreciate it. Drop it in the chat for me. Robin Dave says, whatever does WWE have in store for the Bayley new dark character? My initial thought was why it's 6, but it does seem like it's just a pretty classic, kind of stale heel turn. We'll see how it goes. Paul says, would you like to see AJ Lee versus Natalya? Not really at this point. Fiend would like AJ Lee to win the IC title and feud with Roxanne for Mania. Gotcha, Declan. You do need to say Nash. There's a lot of Kevins in the world. Sean says, a friend of mine who's a big AJ Lee fan is worried about her wrestling, knowing she has said she has permanent damage to her cervical spine. She is not a full-time wrestler. I'll say that and I'll leave it there, because I know a lot of people are throwing things about. She is not a full-time wrestler. Juan says, hey Tom, while Punk was in AEW, did AEW ever have interest in AJ Lee too? Yeah. Beef says, AJ is mid. The return is only exciting because the CM Punk Seth Rollins rivalry is so dry, will take anything. I disagree as regards mid, but I do think she's definitely lit up a feud that needed it. Bob John suggests Alexa's return, also the return of the Wyatts. News that I reported. We've got Declan saying Becky's return and Mercedes going to AEW. Robin Dave says Cody Rhodes returning to WWE. Ryan suggested Bray Wyatt return, something I'm very, very proud of. Declan also says War Games. Bailey says there's some Twitter chatter that Rhea Ripley may have a part in a horror movie, Terrifier 4, later this year. Any news to confirm or deny this? I've not personally been able to confirm this, no. Doesn't mean it's not happening, just means I don't have it. Michael says Mercedes to AEW, Bray returning to WWE, Rusev and Aleister Black going to WWE, which he said 3 years ago. He, of course, being me, appreciate you, Michael. I know that the Mercedes thing is definitely the reason that you are here, so I always make sure to do the best I can with that. Clippers fan made a whole video on how CM Punk was convincing WWE to take him back. You are simply not paying attention. You're going fishing for things which you don't understand. God bless. You have no idea what you're doing. Ed says Bray's return heading into Extreme Rules. I believe is a pay-per-view name. Money to AEW. It was the month before, but it was Extreme Rules on which he returned. Yes. One says Tom Colohue reported Mercedes Money wasn't going to return to WWE because of Nick Khan saying no to the Mercedes Money name. Not money like Meltzer claims. She don't care about money. Declan says Bailey winning the Royal Rumble, Rhea versus Becky. Jordan says, good evening, Tom. Hope you're well, mate. Just personally speaking, great to see AJ Lee back. Always a pleasure to hear it, mate. Mr. X says, this is the rumour true that Jericho's AEW contract expires at the end of this year? Believe so, yes. He's trying to drum up interest from WWE that isn't quite there. Robin Day says, if you were to tell me 10 years ago AJ Lee and CM Punk were to return to WWE, I would think you were crazy. The times we live in. BTP says Brock Lesnar's return. Joey says, hey Tom, how many appearances do you expect AJ Lee to make? Hard to say. It would be a guess and speculation. I would expect around 30 per year, personally. But as I say, I don't have any hard information on that. This is a guess based on CM Punk's contract. Liam says, if Jack Perry never said real glass, AJ Lee will be showing up in Dynamite this week to confront Mercedes Money. Nah, I don't think she would be. I don't think she would be. Ishi says, hello Tom, hope you're okay. Welcome Ishi, good to see you, mate. Declan says, go fish for a whale. Sean says, you've had Becky confirm the report that Mercedes wasn't going to be on the SmackDown before SummerSlam in 2021. Yeah, and 2 prominent wrestling outlets called me a liar, then reported the confirmation without retracting. Yeah. Fun times. Paul says, why do you think Tony Khan changed the all-out pay-per-view time? I think he's just trying to dodge out of WWE. That's all it is. Joey says, do you know if AJ Styles has discussed a new contract with WWE? Yes, they've been talking about it for nearly 2 years now. Jordan says, first came across your channel around Bray's return in 2022, and you've been pretty much spot on since I've been here. No one is infallible. There will be times when I report information which is later proven to be incorrect. I take pride in the rarity in which that happens, but nobody is infallible. Mr. X says, will AJ Styles win the IC title before he retires? Possibly. He's got quite a few years left in him, I reckon. Robin Day says, you also reported Randy Orton would return months before he returned at Survivor Series. Sean says, Nikki Bella said on her and Bree's podcast that she works with creative and would like to turn heel to change up her fearless Nikki character. Oh, and Fiend says AJ Styles' son has expressed disappointment in AJ's booking on Instagram because he hasn't signed a new deal. WrestleFact says, evening Tom, where can we find your work? Do you post regular on TikTok or YouTube? Regularly on YouTube, yes. All of my work is still there. I've never deleted anything on that channel, so you can check that out and get all the information there. It should tell you everything you need to know. My posts on TikTok are content rather than creative. And I will be looking at different ways to change that in the future and just create more. Thank you, Ishii. Thank you, Declan. Appreciate you both for boosting that chat rate. Bob John also says, I think Styles should do a retirement tour like Cena and have his final match in Lyon, France. Noob says, let's hope this Asuka heel turn won't be a bust than her last 2 heel turns. They are relying on Io Sky to make it happen. Next report. Fightful's paywall has reported that Andrade isn't being used, but they haven't heard of an injury. So essentially they're saying they don't know why he's not being used. I can confirm that I also don't know why he's not being used. But I can state Andrade and Ray Phoenix are not injured. They're just not a tag team that the WWE wants to focus on right now. WWE's put them together as a stopgap to fill the division in advance of teams like the Motor City Machine Guns moving to Raw, a move that has not happened. So that stopgap has given them something to do, but there are limits to what any team can achieve in that position. It's also why we haven't seen much, unfortunately, from teams like Pretty Deadly. This is one of the reasons we haven't seen much of Andrade and Ray Phoenix, but they continue to work together, continue to develop their intent, and continue to develop as a tag team in the background. Before rechecking the chat, I'll just quickly touch on Ronda Rousey as well. Ronda Rousey had told Yahoo Sports that she can't see herself returning to the WWE. For what it's worth, nice quick one, the WWE has no interest at all in bringing Ronda Rousey back. Even Nick Khan, a guy whose decisions are almost entirely made based on the bottom line, the almighty dollar, and getting rich, even he has been convinced that there is no value anymore in Ronda Rousey. Mr. X, FTR's AEW contracts have quite a long time left. J-Dub says, I think Triple H doesn't like booking non-white talent, to be honest. Stephanie Vacker would beg to differ. Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill would beg to differ. Street Profits at the moment would beg to differ. There are a lot of very talented non-white people getting a lot of airtime. Io Sky is another one worth mentioning, of course. They are mainly in the women's division, aren't they? Yeah, interesting. Jade Cargill's been featured regularly, J-Dub. Regularly featured. Will, of course, be competing for a championship on Friday upcoming, and recently competed for a championship against Tiffany Stratton as well. So she's still pretty heavily involved. Ryan says, that's the biggest thing I never understand with the trolls. You've been open for so long that you are happy to admit when you are wrong, and then they go for stuff that is completely right. Yeah. There is stuff out there that I have gotten wrong. I don't hide it. I want to make it known. That everyone does occasionally get something wrong. And you can find what I've reported incorrectly. It's all still there. I don't delete anything because I want to be very clear. I am accountable for what I say. And I take pride in that. If you're going to come for me, as it were, don't make up something that you think I've gotten wrong that I accurately reported. Paul says, I'm a Charlotte Flair fan. I have no interest in her tag team with Alexa Bliss. I hope Charlotte goes back to working in singles action. I think it's one of those where, as regards the troll, and the trolls that we get, if they were even slightly effective, if they did their research, surely their intention is to come in here and tell all of you guys something which will make you leave. And yet, here we are. Still doing pretty well, I reckon. 93 people here, 45 likes, 5 more get us up to 50. If we can do that, that'd be great. TikTok continues to grow. All still here. Mr. X, you'd have to ask Body Slam who those names are because they haven't reported a single name. Also says, will Alberto Del Rio ever return to WWE? The WWE have no interest in that. None. Fiend says Andrade is so underutilized. Pardon me. Liam points out, official. Tiffany Stratton versus Jade Cargill for the Women's Championship is set for SmackDown next Friday in Blackpool, England. Well, they're in Blackpool, England. Have I completely missed this? SmackDown, Blackpool. Okay, lots of NXT. Yeah, I don't think that's coming. Someone sold me down a river there. Ishii says, reason why Wyatt 6 lost in a dark match? Why not? Michael says, do you think it's telling that Jade hasn't been a singles champion yet? I thought she would by now. Makes me think they're not as high on her anymore. They're not. They're very much not. They were very high on her when she first came in, but they've been disappointed enough times to not be happy overall at the minute. Mr. X says, is AJ Lee a member of the Raw or SmackDown roster? At the moment, technically Raw. Triple H doesn't like the brand split and probably will be featuring her on both. Robin Dave says, when those people get things wrong, they do not admit it. It takes good men to admit when they are wrong. I think so, personally. I think we should admit if we're wrong and not hide from that fact. Human beings get things wrong. I'm not ashamed of the fact that I don't have a completely perfect record. With the amount of information that I share here, guys, consider this. We've got like 8 headlines today. I do 2 shows a week, so that's like 100 shows a year. That's like 800 news reports per year. We're looking at about 4,000 things that I've reported since starting this channel. I, if anything, would be suspicious if I had a perfect record. I'd be suspecting this was a Back to the Future situation. Bismo says, when you're wrong about something, which is rarely, people are acting like you're the one who turned them down to come back to the WWE. Yeah, people get real offended. It's very funny. Declan says, Becky's on her 3rd longest reign. Ooh. Sean says, do you see Jade winning on Friday? Personally, I do not. No, absolutely, Ryan. Absolutely, and you're right. This is one of the reasons I don't immediately kick out trolls, and it's one of the reasons Ed didn't either. It gets the chat rate going. Everyone says hi troll, bye troll, which also gets the chat rate going. And it creates conversations like these, where I can just laugh in their face. They think they've derailed the conversation. They've helped the show continue. Do you think Jericho will return to WWE next year? Personally, nobody is trying to convince them. WrestleFact says, what's an educated guess on what AEW will draw on all-out pay-per-view buys? I have absolutely no idea. There's no education in the guess. I'm not sure. Joey says, do you think we'll get a 6-match at WrestlePalooza? Yes, I do. Ryan says, I wonder if Jade turns heel on SmackDown to win the title. I think a heel turn is definitely the right move. I would also kind of expect Bianca Belair to be involved, personally. No, Liam, no need to apologise. You got me good. Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton is officially set for SmackDown next Friday. Ishii says, is YS6 still getting a push? Yeah, they're the tag team champions. Fiend says, the other journalists of slander you also can't specify what you got wrong. Talking about the Fire Guy and Corey Hayes. Yeah, it's really funny that their entire shtick is, particularly when trolls come here and say, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence against? I'm still waiting. I've been waiting about 5 years now. I've been waiting 5 years now for the evidence. Show me any. Any. Nothing. Not a thing. Not a single thing. Every now and then they try and throw something at me that's 5 years old, and it doesn't stick. Show me anything. Paul says, have you been interested in the Sheamus versus Rusev feud? I wasn't until the match at Clash in Paris. It was genuinely quite good. Ed says, I've learned trolls are good. I boot rarely, but the hide messages button is indeed my friend. Oh, absolutely, and I appreciate you for that. You've learned exactly what I like, and you've learned exactly how to make it happen. I'm very grateful. They do, Declan. Drive-by says, Tom, what's your opinion on people holding a lot of belts? I.e. Mercedes holding 9 belts. Do you think it devalues them? No. Someone like Mercedes elevates any belt she holds. Absolutely does. Oh, Ethan, welcome. Been a while, mate. Good to see you. I hope you're good. Sends a heart and sends, I love you so much. Oh, appreciate you. Thank you kindly. I appreciate you for that. Yeah, that's hit our goal. Thanks very much, mate. Thanks very much. I don't really understand how goals work. I think I can make a new one. I don't know what that is. Nope, that's something. The goal achieved. Okay. Thank you, Ethan. You can thank your contributors by... Yeah. Can I make a new one? Yes. Apparently. No? Is that a thing? Sure, let's try that. Anyway. Eve Torres is always a possibility. Every now and then the WWE reaches out, but Triple H doesn't really like those sort of surprises at the Royal Rumble. Thanks as well, Ethan, for all those likes. I appreciate that. There are such things as a level 50 fan. I don't know what TikTok means. Fiend says, I don't see Jade winning unless she turns heel. I get that. Declan says, if AJ Lee dethrones Becky, what's next for Becky? Going back towards the the Women's World Championship. We might still get Becky versus Stephanie Vaquer. It just might be for a different title. Fiend says, I think Bianca will be the one to take it off of Tiffany. VTP says, is Triple H now open to bigger match cards for PLEs? Yes, I reported that WWE were trying to convince him, and it looks like he has been convinced. Ethan says, when do you see Dragunov returning? Personally, I think it'll be back at the Rumble. I think he's close to being cleared, but they're going to take their time and make sure not to push him too hard and make him work too hard for it. Do you see Joe Hendry wrestling at Mania 42? Yeah, WWE are real high on this guy. Liam says, like I mentioned on the last spoiler warning, I don't get how WWE can have 2 pay-per-view matches in the Cena retirement tour without any build. Crown Jewel in his final match, very lackluster booking. You're very much not wrong. Sledgehammer is a very fair shout. As a man who doesn't in any way paywall my news, the channel membership option just gets you to some sort of behind-the-scenes stuff. Talking about how I find out what I find out and the like, and that time when I did 275 squats and I don't know why. Anyway, as regards those hiding behind paywalls to avoid scrutiny, yeah, where's the evidence? There are 98 people watching, 46 likes, 4 more, get us to 50 if we can. That would be great. We will have news on Pete Dunne. Sean? We do have news on Pete Dunne. Mr. X says, see Matt Cardona return to WWE. I've been reporting for years that WWE aren't interested. Here we are, if it's still happening. WrestleFacts, I don't necessarily think AJ Lee is going to win the Rumble, but I think her name will automatically make her sort of an automatic favourite. Declan says, I thought a TikTok was a clock sound. Instead, it's an app. It's funny. Fiend says, I unmasked El Grande Americano in 2K25 and it was Gable. What propaganda? They tell you lies. They're going to lie to you. Sean says, I wish there was another way to watch WrestlePalooza without paying $30 a month. Yeah, they know what they're doing. Benji says, do you reckon Paige will return? No. Liam says, it's like this WrestlePalooza match. Brock will have to carry the whole feud since Cena isn't on the same brand going forwards. I did mention that on last week's spoiler warning. It's really not good. Brock Lesnar. We're talking about stuff like Brock, and I have some news on Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar's SmackDown return was contentious, but not as contentious as WWE officials were expecting, which is interesting. Brock is said to have kept his head down and acted with more humility than many were expecting. He stayed out of the way, he didn't really connect with many people, and he left as soon as he could. There are still concerns, particularly amongst the women's locker room, but Brock came in, did his bit, and then left at least without making any new enemies. He's apparently intending to do this in future, particularly when it comes to PLEs, and he is going to be booked in a way that prevents him from being directly in contact with anyone who is not happy that he has returned. Wrestling Observer's reporting on Lesnar's brand new contract is false. There isn't a new contract. He is still working the final year of the same contract he had before he went missing. At the moment, the WWE are just honouring that previous deal. At no point was he technically a free agent, so the Wrestling Observer's report that AEW didn't give him a good enough offer when he was a free agent is also false. Brock Lesnar is simply in that position where he's working through his final year, and at that point, WWE will make a decision. I'll be interested to see what that decision ends up being. As regards Pete Dunne, because the question was just asked about this, Pete Dunne is now viewed by the WWE as a producer, not a wrestler. similarly to how William Regal's wrestling career wound down. He was brought out for the UK crowds, but otherwise he was just working in the back office. I'm told that Pete Dunne himself is relatively comfortable with this. Benji says, is WrestlePalooza on Netflix outside of the US? Yes, it is. One says, trolls still think WrestleTalk and What Culture are reliable news. Can I just say, their views have plummeted. Fiend says, Brock leading the feud is going to be interesting. Ray says, Matt Cardona is working in TNA at the moment. Sean says, I had heard that Dunn has been producing matches for AAA. Is that accurate? Yes, it is. He's also been producing matches for NXT and main roster. Andrew Quinn, you're right, mate, says, hello Tom, hope you're well. It's been a crazy year of wrestling and it's quite insane that every time Seth Rollins has been involved in a storyline, there's always been returns. Sting, Cody, CM Punk, AJ, yeah. The man is considered the big dog. So basically, if there's ever anything that might start to, that the WWE worried won't be received well, just get Seth on it. Fiend said they have a very golden opportunity for Brock's last match to be in his hometown for SummerSlam next year, and that is essentially where his contract is planned to wrap up. Mr. X says, what happened with Shane McMahon and AEW? Shane McMahon was never involved in AEW directly. He was only used in a consultancy capacity, had a few meetings with Tony Khan to make that happen. Also, the pictures were staged. Liam says, who do you think Cena will face at Crown Jewel? Not sure, but he's running out of time to pick someone. Roy says, what's your favourite version of John Cena? Now, to be honest. Bismo says, I've always enjoyed watching Pete Dunne wrestling. I agree, but doesn't seem to be happening now. What can I say? The tag team did not work out. Mr. X, at this point, very much not. Brandy has just given birth. Dakota Kai has opened up about the fact that she does intend to return to wrestling eventually, but it hasn't happened just yet for a variety of reasons. She's taking some time off, she's relaxing, she's resting, and she's seeing how she feels afterwards. The main reason for this is also injury and fitness issues. She's been essentially returning from injury for the past 5 years. There is interest from other companies, such as AEW and TNA, but those companies would also like reassurance of her injury position and her fitness levels before they are willing to advance with any potential contract. She unfortunately has a reputation as someone who's constantly injured now, and she's finding that difficult to shake. Matt Riddle is so desperate for headlines that he started accusing AJ Lee, who's only just returned, of sleeping around. Not sure what he's trying to achieve beyond making people talk about him, but his chances of finding paid work are falling away by the second. Less and less people are interested in working with this guy, and he is seriously not helping his chances. Mr. X says, will Mandy Rose return to WWE or debut at TNA? The WWE have already contacted Mandy Rose saying they are open to a return, but she would have to make some changes to the content she is making public. She's not willing to do so at this point in time. Fiend says, I'd like to see John wrestle Dom at Crown Jewel. Eric says, I'd love to see AJ versus Liv, Stephanie, Julia, Zelina, Io, Asuka, Roxanne and Raquel. AJ Zelina's a very good shout. I'd be interested in that. Liv's a good... all good names. Bailey says, Matt Riddle makes Ryback sound reasonable by comparison. Sid, that better not happen. Yes, I will be watching Raw. I will not be watching Raw live, because that's at like 1 a.m. here in the UK. Bryan Danielson has been added to the AEW commentary team. We've been discussing this one at length in previous spoiler warnings. This is largely to fend off WWE, who are interested in bringing Bryan Danielson back in, but not as a wrestler, as a member of the creative team. They are interested in both him and his partner Brie Bella, but AEW are simply finding ways to keep him in a position whereby he's working for their company without actually overall being cleared to wrestle regularly. We will see a storyline come from this. We will see a new feud happening for Bryan Danielson because they are essentially drip feeding him enough matches to keep him interested in AEW, whereas WWE have not promised matches. The other Mike says, how do you get reassurance on injuries? That's not something you can predict. Typically you get that with insurance on a pay-as-you-play contracts. Wrestling contracts are getting closer and closer to football contracts. Sean says, I think you said Jamie Hayter is perceived as Dakota Kai for being injured. Do you think that could hinder AEW giving her a new contract? Yes. It's not as bad, but it's there. Eric says, Riddle was always a favourite of mine, but Jesus Christ, I hope it's not CTE. The other Mike says, any news on what's next for Fatu? Not at this point. Bailey says, what is the status of Jim Ross on future AEW broadcasts? I don't think we'll see a lot of him, I'll say that. Liam says, with Raw, Crown Jewel and SmackDown being in Australia next month, I think they'll start at 11 AM UK time. And, to be clear, depending on my work schedule, I might be able to cover some of those. Sean says, since AJ Lee is back, imagine if we get an interaction between AJ and Nikki. Fiend thinks WWE is going to cave and allow Bryan Danielson to wrestle. At this point, I actually don't think that's going to happen. Drive-by, at this point in time, most of the matches are set. Ryan says, to be fair to Mandy, she's still making a lot of money from her content, and, don't know the financials, I would assume to her re-signing wouldn't keep it the same as not being there. Yes, she would be making considerably less money, as she has herself said in interviews, if she signs back with a wrestling company. So, AEW apparently are interested in having her work for them, but also keeping some of that content, but not all of that content. She's had a lot of offers. Declan, at this point in time, I've got no news on releases. Mr. X says, is Solo injured or what happened with Solo? He wasn't booked for 1 week because they wanted the Sammy versus John Cena match. We will undoubtedly see him again soon. To recap the AJ Lee story that I've made my top story today. AJ Lee returned to the WWE on SmackDown. She arrived during the show and long after Brock Lesnar had already left. I've mentioned that Becky Lynch, Bayley and Lyra Valkyria were the driving force in her return, but I'm told that her experience with Lyra, which so closely echoed her own experience with Lita, had a direct impact. Triple H is said to have offered a very high value deal, placing AJ Lee amongst the higher end of the women in WWE, but not necessarily rivaling the amount of money that Becky now commands. WWE is intending to feature her without necessarily a strong push towards championships, as championship storylines are already well underway, but AJ Lee is one of the reasons that WWE pivoted away from Becky Lynch versus Stephanie Vaquer, allowing Vaquer to be placed directly into World Championship contention. AJ Lee hasn't met many people yet, but a brief interaction with Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss is said to have ended positively, and with promises of working together in future. Body Slam have reported that AJ Lee has signed a multi-year deal. WWE don't do one-year deals, and they've already shared a video in which she signed a contract. So this is code for reporting what we all already know. I don't personally see how that report has any value at all, but it seems to be, for some reason, getting headlines. Ray says, I enjoyed Bryan Danielson commentating at Forbidden Door. And Liam says, how come the Wyatts weren't on SmackDown on Friday? They were pivoting to feature other people on SmackDown on Friday in the attempt to essentially spread the love. They wanted to try and give Aleister Black and Damian Priest time. They wanted to give Mia Yim a good chance, and that did not quite work out for it. And in the end, unfortunately, it did mean certain wrestlers who were featured a lot took a back seat and had a bit of time off. Everyone likes a time off, so I'm certainly not complaining about that. And that's been your show. We've been live for 48 minutes. We peaked at a lovely 97 viewers. Stick around. I'm going to click the play ad button a couple of times just to get a bit more money into the pocket, to be completely honest. So if you can stick around for another minute or so, I would appreciate that. Until that point comes, I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.